The Coach Show with your host, Sean Green.
And welcome to The Coach Show. We're here with Chris Bart-Williams, famous soccer player from England, now coaching in the United States. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, what a fantastic career you've had as a professional soccer player and an international soccer player. You're now a coach, and a tremendous amount of kids are benefiting from your experience here in the US. I do want to take this time to talk about your professional career, because it's been a fascinating career. And let's talk about it just a little bit. Just some of your highlights here. You started at age 16, your professional debut with Leyton Orient. 16 years of age. In America, kids haven't even done the SATs at 16. And you're playing professional soccer. Can you tell us about your experience with your professional debut?
It was an amazing experience, because I guess I was prepped probably a year or two before, playing with the senior squad, training with the reserve squad. And so it just seemed like a natural time for me to be part of the first team squad. But it was a wonderful experience playing against Tranmere and playing my debut and scoring a goal. It was it's what dreams are made of. It's what you train all through your young ages, dreaming to play a professional game, and it was quite surreal in many senses.
Tell me a little bit about, again, that game day, that match day. 16 years of age, you go into the field. Who was the team that you played against?
It was Tranmere.
Tranmere Rovers.
Tranmere Rovers, and it was ironic because the day before, and you've got to remember, I was a YTS student, so I was going to school and playing soccer. So I was actually cleaning the players' boots, of which I was playing with. So basically, the day before, I cleaned their boots, put them out in the locker room. I turn up for the games. I catch a train, the bus, all the other players arrive in their cars. I go to the locker room. I sit down with all the adult players, senior players. We then play a game. Clearly, we won the game, and then after the game, I'm picking up the boots and going back to clean them, hop on the bus and train and go home. So it was kind of again, like I said, a surreal experience, but a phenomenal experience because it was part of my development.
What advice did you get in your first game?
Just be myself. That's what Frank Clark and Pete used to tell me, but they told me that all through my development. Just be yourself, play your game, and everything will take care of itself.
In England, when I coached in England, there was a young player playing for me called Neil MacDonald, who went on and played for Everton, played for Newcastle, and he made his professional debut also at 16 for Newcastle United. And he was telling me the first thing he decided to do when they were playing Sunderland, and this was his debut as a local rival, as you know, he decided to kick the first player he could as hard as he could. And he knew if he fouled the Sunderland player early on in the game, the whole Newcastle fans would be on his side. So that was his mentality going into the game there. But that's just a fantastic accomplishment to play at 16. When you coach players at 16 here in the US, can you even imagine these guys playing in the professional leagues in Europe at 16?
I guess the answer is yes. I think the difficult part is that it takes an awful lot of hard work and commitment and sacrifice. For a 16-year-old to make it so early, there's a lot of missed events that you have to forego in order to make it. I think sometimes people don't quite understand the sacrifices you need to make in your personal life to get to the top. But once you get there, it's so worth it, clearly.
Well, you were definitely clear on your way when Sheffield Wednesday come calling. A record sum at the time for $500,000 back then, which is about $1 trillion now. But Sheffield Wednesday paid $500,000 for you to transfer there. Tell us about your appearance in the FA Cup finals against Arsenal.
What a dream, because years before, clearly watched many FA Cup final games, dreamt of playing there. So when it came round the week of the final, it was just an amazing experience, the build-up, the anticipation. I remembered vividly, getting on the coach from the hotel, driving to the stadium near my home where I grew up in London. You see the Twin Towers, you arrive in, and it's just a fantastic dream that comes true. And literally the preparation of walking to the tunnel for the first time, walking into the locker rooms, absorbing the atmosphere, coming out into the field before the game.
How is the field? Is it a beautiful pitch, as they say?
It's a beautiful field, but I think not most importantly, but just coming up the tunnel, and as you come out the end of the tunnel, which we've all seen on TV with the covers, it was just, oh my goodness, Wembley Stadium, 80,000 people here. It was just unbelievable, and just coming out for the start of the game, hearing the noise and seeing the flags and the people was tremendous. But the favourite part was not hearing my mum yell at me. That I liked a lot. So.
Let me ask you again, let's stay focused on your Wembley appearance, because, Chris, I mean, we're vicariously living through your eyes for a moment. Sure. I mean, very few people, we all wish to play at Wembley Stadium and on the hallowed turf, and it's every schoolboy's dream around the world to play at Wembley Stadium. How did you deal with the nerves? I can imagine, a young player like yourself playing at Wembley against Arsenal, and you're from London. You lived in London, correct?
Correct.
And so being from London, playing against the Gunners, what did you do personally to deal, or did the manager, the coach, help you deal with it? How about those nerves? As a team, how did you deal with it?
Well, it was actually the managers, the coaches, the players. I think they gave me wonderful advice, even prior to the finals. Over my years there, they just gave me great advice, which I generally just absorbed. So, with all due respect, I think they just trusted that I was mentally strong enough to handle the situation. And I think that's what happened. My coaches really did trust me as a person, as a player, and they knew that if I did have any problems, that I would always approach them. But the advice they gave me was just enjoy the time here, because it's your career disappears so quickly. So when it came to Wembley, to me it was a fantastic occasion. But I think once I was starting to get ready, it wasn't a case of I'm here at Wembley. It was just I'm here to win another soccer game. So that became the focal point, and it was like any other game where I prepared: is what as an individual am I going to contribute to the team? What do I need to do to have personal success and team success? And it's just the same things I focus on every game. But it was great that we got there 2 hours before the game, because you need that time to absorb the atmosphere and the occasion. But I think once you are preparing to go out to warm up, you just start to think it's another game. Clearly it's important, but how can you be successful in this game? And
of course, millions. It's the most watched sporting event, I think, in the world. Millions of people from all over the world are watching a cup final. Can you hear your teammates once that whistle blows and there's 80,000 people screaming? How do you communicate with a teammate in that crowd?
Very rarely can you hear each other. There are moments when it was a little bit quieter than most, but when the crowd are going, it's impossible. So you go back to practices, body language, use of hands and eyes, and you just play the game on your experience as a team and how you've practiced. And you all have your own individual philosophy, and we had ours, but we knew ourselves so well. But it's the case of you just play the game because everybody knows your strengths and weaknesses, and at that level, you really do know your teammates' strengths and weaknesses. So you just always play to your strengths, clearly.
Pick the most memorable moment from that cup final for you that sticks with you. Give us one image that sticks with you out of that whole experience. Either the replay or the first game.
Oh my goodness! I think the winning goal in the replay. I was stood in the 6-yard box at the time, and it was literally I was like 2 feet away from Woodsy, who unfortunately didn't catch the ball and it went in the last minute of overtime. That was a really unusual moment to be on the field at that time and so close to PKs, which our team believed that we could have won it on PKs, but it was just not meant to be. But that moment of losing the final was very emotional. And I think for myself being so young, I think after the game it was kind of, hopefully there'd be another opportunity, but for some of the other players, now looking back, they were looking at maybe there won't be another opportunity, because some fantastic players have never played in the FA Cup final.
Exactly.
And some have experienced it, so it was a case of, at that moment in time, it's like, well, I would love to have this opportunity again, but whether it comes around or not wasn't up to me as such. But it was that was a really strange moment.
Have you been to the new Wembley Stadium?
Yes, it's phenomenal. It does seem a bit weird not to have the tunnel anymore.
Yeah.
I do love history, but it's a fantastic stadium. It really is beautiful.
after Sheffield Wednesday, you moved on to Nottingham Forest. A transfer fee of $5 million in those days, so that would be considerable sum today. $5 million. Tell us about your experience at Nottingham Forest. Who was the manager? Was it Paul Hart?
It was Frank Clark.
Frankie Clark.
Frank Clark. My Sheffield Wednesday time, first and foremost, was a fantastic upbringing. I had wonderful pros and coaches there who really did develop me and make me grow as a young man. My time at Forest was wonderful. I went through the ups and downs with the fans, eventually winning them over, I think. But just arriving at that club, there was a history and an aura about putting on a Nottingham Forest shirt that I don't think I really appreciated or understood for the first year. So it wasn't until probably my second season that I started to feel more comfortable with the club, the surroundings, and living with that pressure of success and playing, very creative and attractive soccer. And that was a really important aspect of it, knowing who the club was. And once I understood that, my performances start to improve.
And you played different roles. You played in defence and in midfield, and captained the team at one point.
Right. So there's an awful lot of pressure, especially being the captain of a Forest team.
What did that mean to you, being captain?
It meant a lot because there's a personality. I'm a bossy man anyway. I love telling people what to do. I lead by example by, I wouldn't say, by how I play. Taking responsibility of the ball, trying to get people to do things that help us to be successful. Wrong or right, I would always take ownership of our performance. And as captain, you're the first person to get judged, first person to get criticised, or sometimes you're the first person to get praised.
Okay. Well, let's talk about captains for a moment. You can always you can select somebody as a captain and can put an armband on a player as a captain, but you can't make them a leader. Is that a lost art now? It seems to me that we're producing fewer and fewer leaders in football. When you look around the locker room, there seems to be fewer each year. Are leaders born? Do we have to train leaders? Are you seeing that yourself in the players that you coach? It's kind of, some players are born as natural leaders and then provide an environment for them to continue to be natural leaders. I think as a coach, I like to think that I encourage people to be leaders. Some welcome it, some are a little bit hesitant, but I think naturally there's always players in your squad that tend to lead to that environment of wanting to be a leader. So I think we do need to provide a better environment for the kids to take ownership of their own performances and their own leadership roles, but we have to guide them so they understand, because I think everybody wants to be a captain, but they don't really understand what it means to be a captain. Well, what does it mean to be a captain? Give us what qualities of a true leader.
I think from my perspective, I love courageous players. And I don't mean courageous players just who always want to fight and battle, but courageous to want the ball in adversity. A test of a true leader, a captain, is how does he respond when your team's down? What does he do to lift your team? It doesn't necessarily need to be verbal, but it could be with his physical traits of how he deals with the ball, his teammates, his opponent. Those kind of traits is what I look for: courageous, encouraging, demanding, sets the standard.
Let's talk again about leadership. Nottingham Forest. How much of the legacy of Brian Clough lives on there at Nottingham Forest when you were there? Did you play for Brian Clough?
No, Frank Clark took over from Brian Clough, but I think he was there a couple of games because I know he was yelling at me. He did very well, but it was there. It was very apparent, the expectations, and again, like I said earlier on, it's something I didn't really appreciate initially, but you do get accustomed to it. Some players get accustomed to it, and it's very evident the standards that are set, both on and off the field.
Have you seen the movie, The Damned United?
No, not yet.
It's it has to be the best soccer movie I've ever seen, and it talks about Brian Clough's turbulent days at Leeds United, those 40 days where he took over as manager. If you haven't seen it, you have to get it. It is absolutely phenomenal. Brian Clough was for me, a role model which I aspired as a coach. I love Brian Clough and love these methods, and you can't separate Brian Clough without talking about Peter Taylor too, because they were a team.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that was a special experience at Nottingham Forest. So you moved from Nottingham Forest, spent 2 years at Charlton Athletic, and then after Charlton at Ipswich Town. And then after Ipswich Town, then you moved to Cyprus. You left the country.
Right.
Why was that?
But during my career earlier on, there was opportunities to play abroad that unfortunately didn't happen. And I always wanted to play abroad because obviously we experienced different cultures coming to England, and just experiencing something different was very important for me. And I know it's only Cyprus, but it was a fantastic experience dealing with a country who spoke a different language. I was the foreigner. How did the players adapt to me? Because I experienced many teammates with different cultures who found it difficult in England, and at times we didn't do enough as a group to help players settle in. So going to Cyprus was just, it was a wonderful experience. It was obviously, the weather was fantastic, clearly, but the soccer was actually very good. The standard was very good, very competitive, and the facilities were very good too. So it was a wonderful learning curve for me in dealing with a different culture, a different language, and a coach who was a very, very, very good coach.
Did you continue to be the magician on the free kicks and the balls in? Or?
Well, they settled me into more of a retirement role at the back.
You descended to the sweeper position.
And it was. They were very respectful, very demanding because of the environment obviously I came from, and again, you just set standards of work ethic and training, quality. So it was really an education for both parties in the sense of what they would like me to teach their players and vice versa, what I could learn from them.
Looking back now, how important do you feel that travelling was, leaving that environment and going to different clubs and travelling to Cyprus? How much of an impact has that had on your expansion as a coach? I mean, the knowledge that you've gained by travelling.
It's invaluable. And I guess this is why I'm in the US also, to gain more experience working in a different culture, different climate, different mentality, and especially here in the US, we really are starting at grassroots, teaching the kids the game from its infancy, which has been very challenging. So as a coach, you have to adapt to that, and that's been a very big challenge.
Well, not only as a professional player were you successful, but you also were selected for the England team, England under 21s. You represented England in the World Championships, in the Youth World Cup Championships, and also with the England reserves and the England B team, and have called up and trained with the full national team several times. Tell me about how you felt when you heard you got picked for England for the first time.
Extremely excited, considering a few years before I'd gone to the England trials and didn't make the England national team that went to Liddershaw. It was disappointing, but it was just, I guess, the start for me to continue to want to develop and challenge myself. So the first time I got called up, I was extremely happy. But again, it was just, okay, this is a start, but I want this to be consistent and to continue. So it's just, I remember I've always said to my kids at times, when I lined up for my first international game against Wales, playing against Ryan Giggs for the first time, I was playing for Leyton Orient, and some of my teammates were playing for Arsenal, Spurs, Man United, Liverpool, so forth. And I use that analogy because you don't have to be at the top team to play at the highest level. Yeah. You just got to find the right environment for you as an individual player that allows you to get there. And different kids take different paths. Clearly, Sol had his path at Spurs, Jamie Redknapp, Portsmouth, then Liverpool, but mine was at Leyton Orient. Yeah. Had wonderful coaches. I had Pat Holland and John Gorman. So it was a phenomenal experience. But again, it was due to the people that were in my life and how they helped me develop and how they gave me all some of the attributes: discipline, personal accountability, ownership of performances, your mentality. They provided an environment that allowed me to be successful.
Is there any difference playing, say, for Nottingham Forest and then playing for England? What is the biggest difference?
The quality of player you're playing against. you just can't have a bad day. In the Premiership, you just can't have a bad day anyway. But in the international level, it really is. You can make one mistake and it's done. It was extremely mentally challenging playing against such elite players. Literally, when you went back to your club, you're so mentally tired because you just have to be sharp in practice in games. It was just a whole another level.
I remember Paul Gascoigne talking one time about that same thing, and he was saying a 2-0 victory playing for England was like a 6-0 victory on a Saturday afternoon for your club team. You just don't those games out there where you're going to run over opponents.
Right.
They're all absolute quality teams. Let me ask you, in your entire professional career as a soccer player, what was the best team talk you've ever experienced? Who was it by? Is there one memorable team talk?
I think one of my most memorable ones was I think Kevin Keegan when he coached us at under-21s, and if I remember rightly, we played in, my goodness, like Austria, something like, and it was just, he made you feel like you were the most valuable player, the most valuable team ever. He demanded we play with confidence, demanded that we take risks and play creatively, but also to play wisely and smart and intelligently. But it was just a very simple speech that wasn't very complicated, but just, it was the way he expressed it was very believable. So that's one of the most memorable moments since a coach has given a pre-game talk.
How do you prepare for your pre-game talks with your teams? I mean, do you write it down? Do you put a lot of thought in, or is it just really off the heart, emotional at that moment, or do you really put a lot of thought into your pre-game team talk?
It probably depends on the occasion, but what I like to focus on is what did we do in practice up to this point. Those are the keys to success, in the sense of giving the players the answers to be successful. Whether we can remember it as we go into a real game is the thing. But I think generally, for me, I like to observe the players. How do they prepare? Are they focused? Do they want to compete? So I think my team talks are based on what I see and observe back from the team. So occasionally, very rarely do I talk about passion. I think it's in US soccer. I think it's just getting the kids to understand that practice is a great environment to replicate what you do on game day. If you don't understand it in practice, it's going to be very difficult to understand it come game day. So it's really, what did we do in practice? And if you can remember those things, those will be your keys to your success. Let's talk about success. In your mind, define a successful. What are the qualities of a successful soccer team? Character, work ethic, discipline, commitment, passion, a challenging environment, great team chemistry. As I say, chemistry, not just so the players get along. I don't think everybody has to get along. I just think everybody's got to respect each other. You don't have to like everybody, but once you cross that white line, the chemistry and the emotion side of it of, hey, this is my teammate, regardless of off the field whether I like this person or I don't spend time with them, is doesn't matter. It's what, as a team, how are you on that team? Are you committed? Are you working for each other? Yeah.
When times are pretty tough, maybe on the field, or you've got to make a coaching decision, which team do you draw from the most? Is it your experience at Forest, or your early days at Leyton Orient, or is there a particular team that you really draw from?
I think it's from everything, and again, it's who am I coaching, what are the objectives, both I guess for the team and myself. But I tend to follow, and most of my teams have been very similar, both from Leyton Orient to Sheffield Wednesday to Forest. The style of soccer was very much possess the ball, move the ball with confidence, take risks. However, here this seems to be a bit of a challenge because the kids don't truly understand what we mean by take risks, and so they don't feel confident in some of the decision making because they're worried about the results. Whereas I guess in Europe, our youth team coaches weren't worried about the results. They were always worried about the performance. Performance.
Does the way, would you describe that the way you coach is similar to the way you play?
Oh yeah. I was always a yeller and demanding. I set high standards for myself, and I do for my teams, regardless of what age, whether it be U9 or. But it's age appropriate. But I am a demanding coach. I think that was the key to my success. Was I was demanding. I always asked more for myself, and that's what I give back to my players. My preparation of sessions, games. It's not just turn up and throw the ball out and coach. It's well thought over, plan over the season, and it's always guided by the kids. What are their objectives, and they have to lead the way because it's got to be their development and not what I want to do. They've got to lead the way. So if they're not competitive, that's okay, but they've got to lead it. And so it's just understanding the beast I'm working with.
Who were your mentors as a coach? Who did you learn from the most?
I think it's pretty ironic that my coaches from when I started playing the game had a big impact on my life, which was my travel team coach, Viv Bates, Dave, and then my professional coach later on was Jimmy Halliburton, Pat Holland, John Gorman, Bernie. They, and obviously Frank Clark and Pete Eustace as well, they really pushed me to the limit. But as what I needed per age, having me train with the first team when I was 15 might seem like absolutely ludicrous. I think I played a pre-season game when I was 15 against Chelsea. Wow. The next day I went to school. It was just unreal. But it's because I think they followed my lead. I wanted to get there, and I did whatever I needed to get there, which was I spent less time with my friends and socialising and hanging out and going to parties. I missed all those because I need to get sleep, I need to get homework done, I need to get to practice.
Did you know at a young age, while you were playing professional football, that you wanted to coach someday after retirement?
No, I didn't really think about coach. I coached whilst I was 19, 20, but I think towards the end of my career, last 5 years, it was definitely something that was, you know what, it's not a bad idea. I seem to be a bossy person anyway, so it just seemed like a natural progression. But yeah, it really was my youth development coaches who always focused on the team development above anything else that and gave me the discipline and the organisation, and the work ethic was led by me. You know, I used to go to practice when I didn't even need to go to practice. I hung out with my friends who played soccer, or I played tennis to keep in shape. Whatever it was, they just led me. I had great role models.
We had this discussion in our locker room about work ethic a few weeks ago, and it seems that kids today have everything. They have cell phones, they have laptops, you know, they have a house, they have food, they have education, they have everything given to them. And where does the hunger come from? I mean, my grandfather worked in a coal mine. I'm sure their grandparents worked in manual jobs from, you know, it wasn't a 9 to 3 job working on the computer. Do you see that in kids today, that kind of work ethic and that hunger? Is it there?
For some kids, it's there, and it's if you had to ask me, you know, what 3 traits help you get there, it's definitely work ethic, discipline, personal accountability. Talent is an absolute bonus, because what's the point in having talent and it's not used often? It's just an occasional. I feel like I was in an environment where there wasn't a day off, in the sense of when you came to practice, you're performing. If you didn't, you knew about it, and so with that comes the work ethic. So I think for me as a person, as a coach, and I watch up my kids, it's so evident about the kids who have that work ethic, because they're the ones who are running back even though there's no hope of getting the ball. But it's just great work ethic, and it's a great trait to have. That kids that are fighting for a dying cause, players who are fighting for a dying cause, it's just fun to see, because it kind of, like you said, back in the day we didn't have much, and right. I think my team talk at the weekend with my U13 boys at the State Cup was, I can't relate to you guys because all I know is I wanted to get to the top, and nothing and nobody was going to stop me in my work ethic to get there. And so I look at you guys, I'm like, I can't give you that. I don't know how to explain it to you, but it's something that you have to find whether you really want it or whether it's something that you just want to enjoy. As a coach, we can't give the kids a work ethic.
You know, professional football a couple of decades ago, you know, it was a way out for people, a way out of the shipyards, a way out from going into manual labour. It was their goal to get a professional job because they didn't want to do that for the rest of their lives. Not unlike a young guy who's in a city who maybe doesn't see a future, maybe sees basketball as a way out and commits his life to it to get that. And there's not that sense anymore that it really is soccer is becoming a millionaire's game, as is basketball and baseball. So it's the kids seem to have everything, and you know the point is that you know the hunger for these players for me doesn't seem to be as evident as it was maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's very evident.
And I think that's a realistic hurdle that young coaches today are facing with players.
It is. It's again. It's just like my teams. I said to my boys, you got to look at who your coach is. So if I say to you, I did not get any birthday or Christmas presents from when I was 10 to when I left home at 17. My mum never bought me one pair of cleats. Right. My coaches donated cleats to me. My mum never bought me one pair of anything, any soccer equipment. It was go to school. Here's my school uniform. Done. So when I was given something, I treasured it, and so it's.
Well, I do have to interrupt you there, Chris. So if you wouldn't mind, pass me those, please. Last time you were on the show, you forgot your cleats, and we have your
prehistoric.
We have your soccer cleats right here for you. So we need a bit of polish. So take them home with you next time that you. Now, players actually wore these boots. I remember, you know, when I was a kid, my older brother, he wore boots like this, and these actually have leather studs. We get a close-up here. These actually have leather studs. Now, if you were a soccer player back then, you would have to go to the cobbler, and they would actually nail these studs onto the boots for you. Right. And you can see this is rock hard. The front of the toe cap here is like steel. Can you imagine being kicked with those these days? Running boots now the new Adidas boots, they have a cleat out now that they're advertising that are lighter than socks. A pair of socks. Amazing. But don't leave your boots. Chris, coming from England, big superstar in England, big name. How do you end up coaching youth soccer in America?
Well, I had friends over the last 8 to 10 years who have been encouraging me to come to the US to work with kids. It's been a fantastic experience for them. So they're always encouraging me to come over. A sample experience, and so I decided after coaching in the south of Italy, I jumped on a plane, came over, worked with MLS for a while, bumped into Tony Chico, who was a former US youth national team coach in the World Cup, in which we played the US, and he offered me a job with Soccer Plus, and I've been there since.
Great organisation, Soccer Plus, have a fantastic reputation, obviously, with Tony Chico's leadership. He's runs a great program there. What is the biggest difference coaching in England and now coaching in the US? What have you found difficult? What have you found easy? Any observations?
Difficulty. Really finding ways to relate to the kids and teaching them how to play the game, because they don't watch the game enough here as a culture because they've got so many other sports. So it really is taking the game to its minute detail and saying this is how we do the technical stuff, this is how we do technical this, technical that. So it really is, that's been one of the biggest learning curves, that it's a slower progression over here than it is back in Europe. Adapting to working with parents. Never known that before, ever.
Exactly.
If I'm not mistaken, I think my coach has only spoke to my mum once, and that was the night that she got the phone call that I was leaving. So that was a vast difference. But dealing with the parents in America was a great learning curve too, in people management, different characteristics. But the parents just really want to know how their kids are doing. So you've got to find ways of relating it honestly and openly to them. and also be realistic in the sense of, you know, where are the kids at. And so those have been the toughest adjustments, I guess.
What advice would you give to a young coach who's starting off in his coaching career? Any advice?
Start off slowly and work your way up. You know, I did rec, travel, so I worked my way up. But more importantly, get your licenses. Watch other people coach, whether they're professional or travel or regional. Just get different perspectives, because it's amazing how you can learn so much. I still learn an awful lot of watching various coaches, high level, not so high level. It's just amazing what you can learn, the way the coaches communicate, their body languages. Not that my body language is always ideal, but you do pick up a lot of stuff. Never stop yourself from learning.
Talking about your body language, you know, after watching your practice session with the boys in this session, it's evident you've got a fantastic relationship with your players. The thing that I noticed immediately was that instant respect. Obviously, that comes with the reputation. Has that helped you?
Yes, it has, because the boys. I received them at a very good age, you know, 11, 12. They absorb a lot of information. They've come an awful long way. But the one thing that they portrayed to me was that they were very serious about the soccer. And so that was great, because that allowed me to give them some of the tools they needed, i.e., you know, respect, discipline, accountability, enjoying themselves clearly, work ethic. So, but most of all, I guess, in teaching them, I've had occasions, on very few occasions, had to show them exactly what I would like them to learn. And I guess that always has a wow factor with them. Someone who can back up what they can do, you know. So that's always kept them engaged. But ironically, whenever they've been successful, it's been when they've followed certain guidelines and rules, whether it be, you know, the right things to eat before games, leading up to games. They've always been successful when they follow the rules, and when they've not been successful is when they've not followed the rules. And as boys, kids, they break the rules occasionally. Mm-hmm. What's been great is they've learned from their mistakes, and they've always learned from adversity. And mostly when they've lost, they've learned so much. So they're a wonderful group, and most of them, they hate when I say, "I told you so." They hate that fact. So they are a great group. They're a great group.
Where will we see Chris Bart-Williams 10 years from now?
Good question. I'm just taking it one step at a time. I'm not sure. I really am enjoying what I'm doing right now. So I guess if I lose the passion to coach youth soccer, I may move on to something else. But right now, I'm just taking it one step at a time.
Well, we hope you don't lose the passion. It's evident watching you coach. You've got tremendous amount to offer the children here in the United States, and not just as a role model, but your experiences and the personality. We thank you for being on the show, and we wish you the very best in your coaching career.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Thank you.